In this episode, we speak with David Lazovsky, the co-founder and CEO of Celestial AI. Founded in 2020, Celestial AI is a creator of the Photonic Fabric technology platform, a pioneering optical compute and memory fabric solution for supercharging AI infrastructure. David leads the company in using his in-depth knowledge of semiconductors, data, telecommunications, photonics, clean energy industries, and extensive international business experience. His impressive career background includes being an executive chairman of Poet Technologies, venture partner at Khosla Ventures, and founder of Intermolecular. I am your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Hi, RJ. It's a pleasure to be here.
So the topic of AI is something that everyone has on their minds, especially if you're in the investing arena, but also if you're an entrepreneur, and there's different parts to the AI sector and how to play in it. You're approaching it from, if I have it correct, the hardware standpoint. Maybe for the benefit of our audience, tell us a little bit about exactly where Celestial AI plays and the constraint that you're alleviating.
You're absolutely right, RJ. Artificial intelligence is changing everything, right? It's introducing a wave of technology and economic advancements like nothing the world has ever seen. And that is having a ripple effect on the data center infrastructure where most of these artificial intelligence workloads are being run that supports AI. What's interesting is that not only is the size of this market immense, but it's also extraordinarily concentrated, right? So the hyperscale data center companies that are out there, the big four in particular, Microsoft, Meta, Google, AWS, represent on the order of 70% of the total data center infrastructure market, right? And this is a market that is projected to grow to nearly $1 trillion of installed data center infrastructure capacity over the course of the balance of the decade.
And so when we talk about the massive growth and how AI models are expanding their need for capacity and processing and compute, where does Celestial AI kind of come in on that?
Yeah. So, the biggest challenge right now is exactly what you just mentioned, which is that these models are increasing exponentially. We've got one of our major customers has a workload that represents the vast majority of their computational workload in their data centers that is doubling in size every 4 months. All right. So the challenge for this industry is that the size of the models is increasing hundreds of times faster, driving up an increase in memory capacity requirements that is 100 times greater than their compute requirements. And today, there is no way to decouple memory scaling from compute. So what Celestial AI is doing is addressing this challenge, which has been deemed the memory wall, right? Which is the fact that you've got orders of magnitude increase in the memory capacity and bandwidth requirements. Those requirements, again, are growing faster than what you can field with processors. So this industry has shifted from a compute limited regime or era to a bandwidth limited regime, where the challenge today is getting parameters from where they're stored in high bandwidth memory to the point of compute as efficiently as possible. And there's really only one way to do that, to address this memory wall, and that's photonically, optically. So Celestial AI, we are the company at this point that's bringing light to computing. We're providing optical interconnectivity, both AI processor to AI processor. And we're also the company that is introducing memory disaggregation for high capacity, high bandwidth memory.
Now, for the regular listener out there who doesn't have a deep background in AI, is this new technology, new IP that you developed, or is it something that had existed and you're really kind of bringing it to the forefront? Now's the right time to kind of commercialize it.
Yeah, it's honestly, RJ, it's a combination of those two things. So it is entirely new, novel technology that we have developed, and we've protected heck out of the intellectual property, right? So we're building an intellectual property war chest. But the building blocks of the technology are all known, established, volume manufacturing proven building blocks. So we're using manufacturing technology in advanced ASICs, the electronics from big companies like TSMC that are running in volume production. And we're leveraging the fact that silicon photonics has made tremendous progress over the course of the last decade, driven by the data communications industry. So leveraging those building blocks to reduce risk, to accelerate time to market, but the core system level technology and the core intellectual property we developed.
And this is not your first entrepreneurial endeavor, and you've been in the semis industry or the tech industry broadly for decades. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got your start? And we'll talk a little bit about your journey to founding Celestial AI.
Yeah. I'm an old guy, right? So I've been almost 30 years in this industry. I started my career at Applied Materials. I was at Applied for almost 10 years. And the entire time working on interconnect. Unfortunately, been able to shake it for the last 3 decades. So at that time, I was working on copper interconnectivity. And yeah, I founded my first company in 2004. It was called Intermolecular. We took it public 7 years later in 2011. Intermolecular was focused on semiconductor R&D and intellectual property licensing. It's actually an interesting story how I ended up founding IMI. When I was at Applied, I was asked by the head of our customer-facing sales organization to go work with IBM as they were bringing up 65 nanometer CMOS, which was at the time the most advanced ASIC or CMOS technology for electronics. And they were dealing with some problems that our equipment was related to. And I just got a hard look at how inefficient the process was for doing R&D. And at that time, which again was roughly 2003, the research and development total investment for the semiconductor industry had outstripped the total market size for semiconductor capital equipment, which was about $30 billion. R&D budgets were increasing exponentially, and semiconductor capex, which is the market that companies like Applied Materials, Lam Research, KLA, Tencor serve, was on the order of about 30 billion plus or minus 5 billion, depending on where you were in the cycle. And I realized that nobody was addressing that market. So I created a company that would focus on improving efficiency, increasing research and development learning cycles. And we created a new business model along with a technology platform to help move Moore's Law forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, was that kind of intuitive for you? Did it feel like a big leap of faith to start your own company, or was it just kind of in you, like, yeah, this is something I do. I start things.
I mean, I was a first-time CEO. I had no idea what I was doing. I actually started with an attorney at Latham and Watkins, a guy named Patrick Poland, who was spectacular. He, at that point, had been involved in about 100 startups, and just as outside counsel, he convinced me to leave Applied to take the leap. So at that time, Mike Splinter was the CEO of Applied Materials. I sat down with Mike and I talked to him about the fact that I was going to make the move. And I mean, what got me comfortable with it was Mike was good about it. He basically said, look, if it works out, call me and let's talk. He said, if it doesn't work out, call me and I'll come back. Right. So that gave me a level of comfort that, even though I didn't have a meaningful balance sheet or a lot of runway, we had to move quickly to get the funding. I had a fallback plan if things didn't work out, but it turned out that it did work out. Right. So we took the company public within 7 years, and I know that's a bit of an outlier, but, I learned a lot. I was fortunate to honestly have Patrick that allowed me to lay the foundation by establishing the right board of directors out of the gate. And so we brought the right investors in, but it's important not just to have the right investors around the table to support you, but more importantly, to have the right specific people from those investors sitting on your board that have the right mindset and can be constructive. I learned more unquestionably from my board as to really how to build companies. One man in particular, Erwin Fetterman, who was the lead from US Venture Partners. He's an icon in the semiconductor industry, the wisest man I've ever met, but really blessed to have people like Erwin on my board of directors.
It's super interesting. It's almost as if, your attorney at the time, and maybe this was happening in parallel. You were thinking about it, he was thinking about it, you were both seeing the same things, you started talking, but somehow he had the faith in you, right? Like he said, like, you're the person to do this. You should found this company, and here's how I can help you. Is that how it occurred?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't know anything about the technology. What he knew was, he had experience building companies as an outside counsel, right? So he had the connections. He knew everyone within the venture capital community, and his job was focused on helping startups nucleate and progress. So having him involved just put me in touch with the right people, right? So obviously, the most critical part of success is getting the right people involved. And people, you always hear, team is absolutely critical. The team is not just your own captive internal team. The team is also the external team, the people that you're surrounding yourself with, the board of directors, the technology advisory board that you have access to, and their networks, right? So there's so much intangible benefit, more so, honestly, than the capital that comes from having the right external team involved.
Mhm. Speaking of capital, congratulations on your recent close. I think it was in the order of like 175 million in your last round.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we a couple of weeks ago we closed a $175 million round. It was led by USIT, which is Thomas Tull's fund. So yeah, that brings the total capital raised since inception of the company. We're about 4 years old, so we've raised about 340 million at this point.
So let's talk about the founding of Celestial AI in 2020. What was it that compelled you to kind of move forward with this? And was the initial idea the same as the current idea?
Yeah. So to answer your second question, no. The initial idea was definitely to focus on leveraging optics, photonics. Yeah. So the original idea was to use photonics for both doing the math as well as doing interconnectivity. So what we're focused on now is the second part, the interconnectivity, using light for moving information, not for doing the compute. So how it started was I was offered an opportunity to join Khosla Ventures as a partner working with the node. And leading up to the opportunity joining Khosla, I was just getting up to speed in what was happening in the whole field of artificial intelligence. And for me, as a semiconductor hardware guy, it was a refreshing time in the venture capital sector because when I started my first company, venture capitalists were not investing in semiconductor hardware companies. It was not common. So raising money was more challenging. But with AI, there was a wave of ML accelerator companies, the Graphcore's, Groks, Saminovas, Cerebras. So this huge wave of investments in artificial intelligence hardware companies to go compete with the Intels, AMDs, and NVIDIAs of the world. So I was getting up to speed on all of that. I'd actually locked myself in my basement for a few months, reading up on what was happening in these architectures. And then I came across a video from a guy named Professor Nikos Pleros from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki on Microsoft's AI website. And the last part of his video was focused on photonic neural networks. And I had just come off of a board position in an optoelectronic device company. And with my semiconductor background and with my recent experience in photonic integrated circuits and optoelectronic devices, and with what I had seen from this video from Professor Pleros, I just saw an interesting opportunity. So I reached out to Dr. Pleros via LinkedIn. We connected. I asked him what he's doing with the technology. And he said, well, we're publishing, that's what we do. So, having had the experience that I had in doing licensing deals, we ended up doing a mutually beneficial intellectual property licensing deal, took rights to that technology. And then from there, I took some seed funding from Khosla and brought in some incremental investors, brought in IMEC, M Ventures, The Engine, which is the MIT-based fund, and off we went. And then I started building the team.
That's interesting. So it's not only your history in the sector, the overall sector of semiconductors, but it's also the proximity you were in to all these companies. The fact that you were with Khosla Ventures at the time gave you exposure, which ultimately led to your further research and then the idea striking you. And was there kind of like lightning bulb moment where you were like, this is it, this is going to be huge?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like, there's a few of those moments over the course of the last 4 years with this company. The initial concept of leveraging zero resting mass photons as an alternative to moving information electronically was clear. You got physics working for you instead of against you, right? Which is inherently a good thing. So that coupled with the maturity of where silicon photonics had come, driven by these other industries, the timing was right, and I think about as a VC and honestly as an entrepreneur, when it comes to starting a company, there are 5 T's that you need. And the most important is the team. The second is the technology. The third is the TAM, or the addressable market. The fourth is treasury, or access to capital. And the fifth is timing. And I really felt like we had an opportunity with the right team and the right technology to take advantage of an unbelievable market opportunity, with the timing being perfect. So, yeah, the one thing that I did right, what I learned in the first company, is building the right team. So rapidly brought in my co-founder, Preet Virk. He was at Macom running their networking business unit. And then shortly thereafter, we made the smartest decision that we ever made, which was bringing in our chief technology officer, Phil Winterbottom. This is the smartest human being I've come across in my life. I mean, and not by a small amount. This guy started his career at Bell Labs. He was there for 10 years and then founded two companies, one called IntraSphere that was acquired by Ericsson, and the second called Gainspeed, which changed the cable space, the way that cable television is delivered to homes globally. That company was acquired by Nokia. So Phil is the architect of our technology platform.
Well, what's unique is that you bring a combination of skill sets. You mentioned the five T's, and you've got, I think in order to be leading this initiative, you have to know the technology, or you have to be, well versed in it enough that you can convince investors and the best team to surround you. But then you also have to have a little bit of sales capability. You have to have, a little bit of organizational mindset, how you cultivate a culture. Did all those things kind of come to you as you were building your companies or rising up through applied materials? How do you think you were able to kind of get to where you are today?
So, I studied mechanical engineering, and I grew up riding and racing motorcycles. So I went into mechanical engineering and I joined Applied to go build equipment. But then I got about a year in, I got sucked into the business side of things, which I actually enjoyed. So interacting with customers and understanding really the end game, right? So the more comprehensive your understanding of customer applications, their needs, their challenges, the better suited you're going to be to go solve those problems and develop solutions that have value. So I learned a lot at Applied, starting from the end game and working backward. The Silicon Valley, and I think in general with entrepreneurs, and Silicon Valley is full of tombstones where you have very interesting technologies that have been developed, solutions that are looking for a problem. And if that's the approach you're taking in trying to start a company, it's potentially doomed. Right. So you have to start with the end game. And in fact, we've employed that more comprehensively, frankly, with the business model here. So our technology is called the Photonic Fabric, right? It's an interconnectivity technology, and it's tremendously differentiated. We at this point, we're 8 to 9 years ahead of the rest of the industry in terms of our capabilities. But the technology in and of itself is not what differentiates us. It's three things. It's our technology. It's the caliber of our interdisciplinary team, the depth and breadth of the technical acumen in multiple interdisciplinary skill sets that are required to do what we're doing in hardware and software and different elements of optoelectronic devices. But the third thing that is really enabling is our customer engagement model. So again, what we are not doing is packaging up our technology and offering it up in a single form factor and telling our customers, here it is, take it or leave it. We go exactly the opposite fashion, which is we collaborate. So we engage with customers. And in our case, you got four companies that really matter here, right? And the ecosystem around them. So we engage with them to gain an understanding of what their artificial intelligence workload requirements are, and then how that translates to their data center infrastructure system requirements. And then we work with them, leveraging the Photonic Fabric as a technology platform to adapt it to be most seamlessly integrated into their data center infrastructure in a manner that it can be most impactful.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there a part of the technology that causes you to kind of think more deeply about, like, okay, is this going to pose a risk? Is there going to be some delays because we can't solve this particular aspect of the technology? Or do you feel like, hey, I got a great team here. I know they're going to solve it. We're working collaboratively with our customers and we'll get there. Like, how much do you worry about the risk around technology?
Yeah, so the risk that we're focused on is primarily timing risk, right? Again, the nice thing, typically you're worried about timing risk, like this technology is too early or too late. Usually a lot of these technologies that fumble around are too early. In our case, there's not that type of risk, right? Artificial intelligence has basically accelerated the adoption of optical interconnectivity by probably 8 to 10 years. So there's an immense need now. So you hit on, I think, one thing that is really dramatically reducing the overall risk for us, because it's not just about building a team that has the capability and the experience to develop a solution. It's about the engagement model, right? It's about partnering with our customers and with the ecosystem and establishing an ecosystem, leveraging our technology platform to reduce risk, right? So we engage with customers in longer term collaborations where they're actually putting skin in the game, right? They're investing with us and not small amounts of resources in both dollars and people. It's 18, 24 months of engagement focused on designing our photonic fabric technology into their processors, right? And they have skin in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are directly and internally incentivized to work with us to develop volume production solutions.
And what's that next big milestone you have in your sights? Is it to take this public within a set amount of time?
Yeah, so this is the fourth startup I've been involved with. The other three are public or went public and were acquired. The second one I founded, this is a different animal, right? So this company is 10 to 100 times more valuable than anything I've been involved with. We're in exactly the right place at the right time with the right capability and the right team.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's no question that we're extremely well positioned to take the company public when the time is right. What we will not do is go out too early. And I learned a lot having taken my last company public. So we'll make sure that we do a few things to engineer the right outcome. And this is something you can have a little bit of foresight on to make sure that you're going to be well positioned as a public company. Part of it is getting the business foundation laid and such that you're well positioned for growth and that you're either profitable or on track for imminent profitability quickly with significant growth kind of baked in before you consider filing an S1. The other, though, is getting your cap table structured in a way that your investors are buyers, not sellers in the IPO. One of the things I've done in building the investor base that we have in this company is look at crossover funds, right? So our largest investor, for example, is Coke Disruptive Technologies. They're a 130 billion AUM company, the largest private company in the United States, also very comfortable holding both private and public equities, which is critical. Similarly with Temasek, which is another one of our largest investors, they'll be buying into the IPO, not blown out in the IPO. So those are the types of investors that we're looking for to be with us over the long haul, because the last thing you want as an early public company 6 months after the IPO when the lockup lifts is for the LPs from your existing investors driving a requirement for liquidity, which puts negative pressure on the stock.
Mm-hmm. Final two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Yeah, I would say without question, the person who's impacted me the most, I mentioned earlier, which is Erwin Fetterman. He's a guy that one of my favorite things to do is just sit down with him. He still operates out of his office in Menlo Park, so just either go grab lunch with him or sit down with him. Sometimes he's got a place in Kona. I'd get together with him in Hawaii and just sit down with him, grab a cup of coffee, and let him pour wisdom all over me. The guy is just a gem. He has the ability to cut through complexity in a way that nobody that I've been exposed to has the ability to do. Just cut through and really get right to the heart of what matters and arrive at solutions that are extraordinarily creative. Just an amazing man.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I've had several family members and friends that were impacted by cancer, and that's a tough one, right? So I think there's a charity out there called the Canary Foundation that's doing something that is quite impactful, which they're focused on imagery, right, for early and more accurate and cost-effective cancer detection, which is, it's actionable, something that can actually have a significant impact on people's lives. So the earlier, the more accurate the imagery, the higher the likelihood of a positive outcome. But making that imagery more cost-effective for more people, I think, is really important, and the Canary Foundation is doing a good job with that.
Excellent. Well, Dave, want to thank you again for taking the time to chat with us today. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thanks, RJ. My pleasure.